electromagnetic energy around you. You start with activating those on the right spin ratios, and you work with the D12 Maharata current and some of the higher life force currents to begin the clearing process that will get your DNA template back into the right order, despite the fact that the planetary grids are progressively setting stuff in. This is why we have to do technique right now. We can run our Maharata. Normally that would clear it and hold it permanently. But as soon as we clear it, we pick up from our templates, because our templates are part of the Earth template, we're picking up more of the mess that's in the grid, so we're remanifesting the mess. So we need to build enough D12 frequency to make it through a number of those flash on and off moments, and then it'll start to drop and dissipate. We have to bring more up. We're manually anchoring our Christ consciousness so that we can eventually do the molecular transmutation. This is what your body has to go through that I just described, as far as everything pulling into the nucleus of cells and then shifting an angular rotational particle spin, producing celestine. If you're going to go through a gate, this is what your body has to become capable of doing. You can't go through any other way, because if you don't go through that process, the chemicals that you're made of here will hit those frequencies and will crash rapidly. It will destroy their templates because it's too high of a frequency. And if their templates rip apart particularly very quickly, the body goes into spontaneous combustion that starts in the nucleus of cells. So it's a physical process. This is why people say, oh, you don't need to worry about the physical body if you're going to be spiritual. It's like, yeah, right, you can float around down here in two pieces for the rest of eternity if you want to. But if you want to do spiritual integration and get yourself out of here and ascend, you need to incorporate your body in the process, because it's anchored through your body. So after lunch, we're going to go through some of the processes about, we have thought fields. Now, one more thing before we do that. I want to continue this down real quick. We have myons, dions, and trions. We have the negative charge, base negative charge units, positive charge units that turn into these type of particles. Okay, electrons, hadrons, mesons, etc. Over here, where these are the ones we're aiming for, the trions, photons, leptons, muons, tau, gag bosons, all the way down to here. This is primary force association that's associated with each of these things. This is where it gets fun, where we find out that particles or conditions that have what appears as a neutral mass velocity, where there's neutral mass, where it really has like zero mass. It's like a particle, it's something, but it doesn't have any of what appears to be weight or mass to it, or doesn't have any velocity. It doesn't move, it doesn't have any movement. It appears to not have spin. Things that appear under microscopes that have these conditions are actually associated with trions. They look different when you're in the inner Earth time bands, but from here these are the forces they're associated with. Neutron activation. This is associated. These trions are what it takes. You need to have trions are what will set your neutrons into activation in your cell nucleus to turn into protons to make enough to pull in all the electrons to reverse the polarity. So these are associated with the transmutation process. They're associated with zero force type things, which means neutral things that don't have any force or movement. Therefore, the main force they're associated with is electromagnetism and its properties, fission and fusion, particle conversion. When we get over to here and we see what the dions are associated with, remember they're the base electrical units, they're associated with particle decay, electron spin, electricity, light and lightning, fission, and particle velocity. So that's what they have to do with. And we come over to the myons, they are associated with particle accretion, the drawing in process of particles, with proton adhesion, the fact that protons and neutrons, actually quarks pull together with gluons, the different particles, to hold protons together in the nucleus of cells. This is happening because of the myons. The myons. The myons are holding together the protons. They're holding them together so the life force units can build to fill out the matter template. And vice versa, which means we're making a real mess when we play with nuclear weapons and things. Okay, and particle mass. So here you have particle velocity, the speed at which particles go and the spin that they're going to go at. And here you have particle mass, how much density they're going to have. These are the forces that are associated with them. These are forces that scientists know exist. They're forces we observe. The primary elemental forces. There are 4 primary elemental forces that science recognizes officially, which is the electromagnetic force, the weak nuclear force, the strong nuclear force, and the gravitational force. Now, the weak nuclear force is like a force that brings, I think its effects can be felt over long distances, but it is much weaker than the other thing, that is the strong nuclear force, which is a force that's detected in atoms and actually holds them together. And it's much stronger, but it has a much shorter range of influence. It's like the inside shorter force, and the other is the long-range force, but it's dissipated. Now, the weak nuclear force is associated with the dyons, the base electrical charges, and the strong nuclear force is associated with the myons, the base magnetic. The gravitational force is associated with the base magnetic and is directly proportional to what the base electrical forces are doing and what the electromagnetic forces are doing. Electromagnetic force is a property, and its properties come from tryons, the interaction between polarities within a neutral base. So it's a three-way interaction. That's what really generates electromagnetism. It also is affiliated with the weak nuclear and the strong nuclear force and the gravitational force. So when you see the tryons affect all of the primary forces, and then there's the myons and dyons have their stronger influence, like the strong nuclear force is the base magnetic, and the weak nuclear force that kind of radiates outward, that has more of a range, is associated with the electrical. Okay? And all of these are associated with time projection of the hologram, with projecting the hologram, controlling the vibration of units where vibration goes to oscillation and hologram goes off to on in a syncopated sequence. And syncopated means kind of like off the beat rhythm. You have one rhythm, then you have a rhythm that's hopping in between those rhythms. To make the illusion happen where there's no blank spots, where all of a sudden it shuts off and another one comes on, they're syncopated. Where one goes off, another comes on, and it's like a dance. And it's not just a dance here. It's a dance. Our dance is synchronized with the antiparticle universe, which is synchronized with the inner Earth timelines. It's a dance that involves all those reality systems at the same time. So it gives us something to think about when we go to do our lunch. I think lunch is on its way. Yes?
All this knowing that we have around the food that's going to come from
We'll have a lot of ground to cover, and we'll pick up where we left off. If I can figure out how to turn this on. Is that it? That's it. Okay. Now, pardon the little scribbles here. There's something I want to show you. I just scribbled onto this diagram over here. Okay. You can tell it's new material when you have handwritten scribbles all over everything. All these nice, neat charts and things start out like this, usually on about 5 different pages with hieroglyphics scribbled all over them. And then they slowly come into focus. Just like when you think a thought, it builds up and it makes particles, and eventually the particles come into accretion and become a solid thing that looks like something outside of you. Well, the graphs are like that too. Now, we talked about before how when we think a thought, we're actually creating a dion field, or an electrically charged field. Now, it's an electrically charged field on the template level, because dions are positive charge. They create, in manifestation, the opposite charged particles. So the dions, the electrical signature that we send out, the dion grid we send out with our thoughts, creates a negative charged thought field, which is like frozen thought field that creates the matter illusion. There's a process by which this happens that you can understand where the Vesica Pisces and the Merkaba fields come into this whole process. Now, this is what this little scribble is here. Can you see these? There's a Vesica there. Okay, there's a circle there and a circle there. Now, this circle here in this diagram is representing your template, the part of your template. The other circle is representing the planetary template. Okay? So you have here in this particular universe, this is the particle universe as opposed to the antiparticle. There's a particum, and then there's a particule universe. We're just dealing with the particum universe right now, where we are, where our consciousness is focused. Our consciousness actually exists as myons. This is an illusion of what we look like. What we look like really is a field of specifically organized ionic particulates, which are sound vibrations. It's the tone body that exists beneath and before and with the light body. All right? So the tone body, the myon body, is who we are. When we think a thought, it's actually a part of our body moving out into the unified dimensional field of the planetary template, where then that part of who we are becomes the hologram that we see. Now here we have our Mayan body, and we have the Mayan body excuse me, of the Earth's template. So what you have is a Mayan template intersecting with the Mayan template. All right, you have a negative and a negative. All right, they would repel each other if they were the same, if your Mayan body had the same amount of thrust in its Mayan units as did the planetary template. But the planetary template's Mayans are bigger and stronger. They have more energy to them. They have more vibration to them. So there's stronger vibration that has the ability to override the vibration of the Mayans that you send out. This is how your Mayans, you as a Mayan, gets portions of your template turned into reverse polarity to become Dions, which move away from the rest of your template. And this is where you get the holographic projection. You're looking at a Dion field that used to be, when it was Mayans, a part of your body, a part of your being as a Mayan self. But it got its polarity reversed and projected outward. Now, the process happens, they were explaining this to me over lunch, and I do these little diagrams going, oh my God, it does that, and it does that, and it does that, and it does that, and then it becomes here. I'm just going to take you from, it does several things that I'll try to quickly explain, because it's shifting of angle rotations and those kind of things, that gets us to the point where the hologram projects out. So you have your vibration. And remember, if you just take one unit of one part of yourself that's part of your template, like one aspect of your D1 first strand template, where your consciousness is as your first strand template. If you just take one little code, this is what the one little code would be doing, that one little piece of your consciousness. It would take the Mayan, and the Mayan field of you intersects with the Mayan field of the planetary template. This one has a bigger charge to it. They're both negative charges. And they start to, now the negative Mayans are pull particles. They draw in. So they're trying to draw in each other. They're both trying to pull the other one in. It creates a tension zone, first of all. And it creates what's called a magnetic repulsion zone. They're creating tension. Tension is necessary if you're going to have manifestation. All right. So they first start to fight with each other and pull energy. So there's resistance. They have resistance to each other. Because one is larger than the other, the planetary one is larger than the one that's coming from your smaller template, that one eventually will win, and it will draw the other one. It will reverse its polarity. It will literally pull the axis that it's spinning on into reverse to match its own axis. Okay, it will pull it this way. Now the axis on these particles, on your Mayan units and the ones in the planetary template, are actually a different axis, but you have the same rotational spin. What happens with the larger mass Mayan is it draws itself into tension with your Mayan to the point where it pulls the axis of spin that yours is spinning on, and it pulls it into a 45-degree shift. The 45-degree shift in your Mayan axis turns it into a Dion, which reverses its electrical charge and polarity. At this point, it can pull into the planetary template. The other Mayan is still a Mayan, and it will continue to draw in the unit that was you, but the unit that was you is now electrical, so there's no more resistance. So now electrical, positive and negative draw together when you put, like in a battery, okay? Put the ends that have the same charge together, they push apart. But you put them negative, positive, and the current flows. So your consciousness gets drawn in to the planetary template. At that point, what is happening is this circle that was your template, and that circle that is the planetary template, they actually start out as two circles that just touch each other on the outside. But as this process of pull is happening, and then the reversal of your Mayan into a Dion, it brings those two spheres together. It makes a Vesica Pisces. Now what a Vesica Pisces is if you look over here, these are the two fields separated. There's a triangle pointing up with a circle in it, and a triangle pointing down with a circle in it. The one pointing up would represent the electrical charge, the base electrical charge particle, the one that's pushing. This one, so that would be the Dion. That once you turned into a Dion, your energy fields will be doing this. The one down here is the Mayan field that's drawing in. That's the upside down triangle, just like your Merkaba, the electrical on top and the magnetic on the bottom, right? They have a particular ratio that they normally have to each other that I won't go into the math ratios, but when you get the information sent to you, once this chart pack thing supplement is done, the ratios and the shifts will be on there, so it shows you why you need to use the spins that you use on the Merkaba. But the Merkaba fits into this whole thing. Here's where the Vesica forms. So you have half a Merkaba, half a Merkaba, which are electromagnetic spirals. One's electrical, one's magnetic. When they come together, because the one Mayan from the planetary grid changed the polarity of your consciousness, reversed it, and pulled itself into merger with it, it pulls these two together to form this, which is the Merkaba vehicle. At the center of the Merkaba vehicle is the area of projection. That's where the hologram happens. That's where electrical and magnetic force relate at certain degrees to each other. They start to refract energy to each other, where you get a projection that is called light. A Vesica Pisces shows you that in this space here is actually where light occurs. Here you have what began as Mayan, or sound. Here you have Mayan, or sound. Two sound fields colliding. They collide at a 45-degree angle with each other. And then there's reverses of polarity on the smaller one, creates the merger of the two in a small space. That's that intersection space in the Vesica, which is that circular space inside of the Merkaba vehicle when your Merkaba vehicle is activated. The space that your hologram is taking place in, is in here, which is in here. That little oval shape in there is actually this. It's symbolizing that's when you make a Merkaba, what you're doing is making a Vesica. And you're pulling your consciousness and the consciousness template around you, from the dimensionalized template, in together, and they collide, and light is formed. And that light will take and project whatever the patterns were in both templates. They merge them together, and the hologram gets projected. So that's how, this is why when we work with symbols like the Vesica and when we work with Merkaba, without explaining this, you can say, well, okay, I understand I have these Mayans and Dions, and when I think thoughts, they come out in Dions because they get their poles reversed, and that makes my illusion. Where do Merkabas and Vesicas and stuff fit in? This is precisely where they fit in. They are the byproduct. Those energy forms are the byproduct of what your consciousness Mayans do when they intersect with the consciousness Mayans of the field around you, and it creates your Dion electrical thought field. And this is where your hologram takes place. So when you start to work with these fields, the Merkaba fields around you, you're affecting the relationship between the outer template of the planet and the template that is your consciousness. You're affecting how they behave together. When things are, and this happens on a major microscopic level, I mean micro units. There are literally billions and billions of cycles of this happening, that the two coming, they collide with each other, one reverses polarity, and pop, it comes out. Within every breath, you have billions of these transactions taking place on each code, in each strand, in each dimension, and they're all taking place simultaneously. So it literally sends out this major movie picture. We're all in the theater watching a movie. And when we begin to realize that the whole movie is controlled by what these two energy fields do, what our self as a Mayan field does compared to the Mayan field of the planetary template that we're in, that will determine how that is functioning, and if it's functioning properly, will determine what kind of hologram we perceive and how much we will appear to have control over what to do with the hologram, over how much we can influence the hologram. The reason that humanity has got to a point where it's lost touch with 99% of its ancient knowledge of how to be masters of the hologram, where the hologram could be a joyful experience, is because our DNA template has been blocked on purpose. It's been blocked by creating blockages in the planetary template, and because our template's part of it, if the planet can't run certain frequencies, even if you have the template for them, the planet can't bring them in, so you can't reach them. Because the primal creation currents, the life force currents that come down from the primal sound fields through the primal light fields, through the dimensionalization process. You have the Kundalini Kirashe currents, and then you have the Maharada D12 current, and then you have the Antankarana currents, the 9-dimensional Kundalini currents. They all have to come down and move down through the scalar patterns. They flash on through the scalar patterns to energize the systems here. How they get here and how they are able to come in to give the energy to the illusion is because the templates, the little scalar templates of sound that are like turned off, are waiting for the arrival of that frequency to come in through the primal life force currents. The primal life force currents are like a holographic beam. That is the living beam of consciousness that comes into the living templates that are sleeping and wakes them up so they can project outward. Now, we all have templates. The planet has a template, the galaxy does. If you don't have the full dimensional spectrum in your template, if any part of that is blocked, that means that particular current cannot come in to that system. Our planetary grids were blocked, so we couldn't receive any more than 3 frequencies of current, which is the telluric current. We were cut off from being able to receive the density 2 all the way up to primal light, sound field currents. They're still there. They still exist all around Earth, and Earth is within them. But they can't be pulled into the hologram in the matter body because they can't enter the templates because the templates are twisted. It's like having a door or a valve that is supposed to open and close. But if it locks and its hinge freezes, what's supposed to go through it can't come through. And that's what's been happening. That has affected everything on this planet. It's affected our DNA in amazing ways. It's affected our templates by taking a minimum of a 12-strand template where we could run full 12 dimensions. That's just the regular human imprint. Indigos can run 24 to 48 full frequencies, the whole primal sound field, some of them. You can't access those currents without D12 current, which is the D12 Maharata Christos current, and if the planet can't hold D12 Christos current, you can't pull those currents into your body. This makes the body mutate, because remember, what the body is part of the hologram that flashes on. It flashes on into particle base, where the myons and dions create literally the subatomic particles that form the matter base, which forms the chemicals that form and fill out body forms here. So literally down to our subatomic level and beyond, we have been changed in ways that weren't organic to our original D12 template. We were supposed to have, humans were designed as a minimum of what's called a base 12 life form. That means the genetic alphabet is supposed to have 12 letters in it, not 4. Now, what it means, the genetic alphabet, the way science uses this, is that the genetic alphabet is determined by those chemicals that make up, they're called the base nucleotide bases, the base chemicals that make up the rungs in the ladder, the chemical rungs that form the shape of the DNA ladders. There are supposed to be 12 different chemicals in there. Right now, there are only 4. And what's really interesting, and this is one of the big fallacies about the Human Genome Project that's going on right now. Science assumes that, first of all, humans are a base 4 genetic alphabet. But it's not just humans. They assume everything has the same base alphabet. Because right now, when you look at the chemical DNA, everything, all things that have DNA are made of 4 chemicals, not anymore. So it's hiding a fact that the reality of the chemical bases of DNA are not a fixed genetic alphabet. They are a variable genetic alphabet, which means humans should have 12 chemical combinations that form the chains, that form many, many more units of the DNA than what we have right now. We would find that if we took DNA from another species that right now looks like it has a base 4 alphabet too, it might have a base 4.5 while we have a base 12. It might have a base 6 while we have a base 12 or higher. The chemical combinations the DNA is made out of are not the same for all species, but they're appearing to be here right now because of these mutations, because literally a huge portion of the templates of all of us, including the animal and plant kingdoms, is being shut off because the templates are being blocked through sonic wave interference. What is doing this is literally a standing sonic wave that was put in here 25,500 BC. As a set of crystal implants. We'll talk more about that this afternoon as we continue. It will be either, because we have a tight schedule and I have to increment what I think is most important for you to know into this. We'll talk about, it'll be more toward when we're closing, because there's some more important things I want to get to first. But later, before we leave, we will talk about something called the Nibiru and Dyadic crystal grid. Because this is the little monster, the little black spider that I vaguely mentioned the other day, that has been doing this to the DNA of everything on this planet. And when you mess up the DNA, because you have messed up templates, it severs the consciousness from integrating. We have not been able to remember who we are or to bring in our natural memory banks of our higher dimensional connections, and we haven't even been able to remember that we are the consciousness that's forming our body. We've been out of touch with the illusion. The hologram appears as if it has nothing to do with us. It popped in here somehow, and we have to figure out how to survive in it. Because of these mutations, it's changed the way our consciousness can perceive, and it looks like we're locked in to a world that's externalized from us. As we begin to realize that we're manufacturing the hologram, and the reason we didn't know that was because there have been things done to the DNA that have made it so it's very, very difficult to see where your consciousness goes between those moments. It's like it's edited out all the other stuff that happens between the moments of the hologram projecting out and coming back in. The moments when you return to vibration and you're no longer in light, which means your body disappears. You don't see that anymore. It's not in your perceptions because when you turn back into vibration, your consciousness goes hyperdimensional. It goes up to the next octave of vibration, which means it literally demanifests here and gets more closely into its relationship with itself as source. It goes back into sound. Once upon a time, we knew that. We could feel it in our bodies. We could maintain the illusion of having a body that stays put. We didn't all disappear and reappear before our eyes. It would be a little strange to walk the hologram that way. So we could play in the illusion of matter while fully knowing that there was a part of us in each of those stations of consciousness simultaneously, and they were all switching off back and forth. There's an information relay system. We knew how to talk to our molecules, and if we wanted to shift angular rotation of particle spin, we'd simply envision certain symbols, and the molecules would say, okay, and they would shift the particle spin, and we had full access to going places and doing things that would only seem imaginary right now. The mutation that's taken place in the DNA has not been able to be fixed for thousands and thousands of years because the planetary grids could not run D12 frequency. D12 frequency holds intact the original spectrum of dimension 12 all the way down to dimension 1 frequency. It is the strongest frequency of all of them, so it has the power to override any distortions in the lower dimensional frequencies in a template and reset them to their original divine blueprint. That's why we all have a divine blueprint, that D12 pre-matter blueprint that's made of D12 frequency. Once it's activated in the body, it has the ability to begin purging out the distortions, blockages, and mutations that right now are keeping our chemical DNA as if it's being strangled by the neck. It goes right down into the number of chromosomes. When they look at our chromosomes, the chromosome count is hysterical, the way science is exploring it right now. What it appears to be in the hologram, she has all sorts of weird chromosome counts. Like crayfish have more chromosomes than humans. Cherries have more chromosomes than humans, some kinds of them. And it was even surprising to the scientists because they thought, well, gee, you'd think more complex life forms would have more chromosomes. What they're seeing right now are half pieces of chromosomes that bond together artificially that form what appears to be whole chromosomes that aren't even whole chromosomes. They're seeing fragments and calling them wholes. They're seeing sequences of things that they call genes that are actually portions of genes that the rest of the sequences are missing. There's a bunch of stuff they call junk DNA. Junk DNA is a riot. Junk DNA has to do with, I believe they're called intron sequences of DNA, which appear to be, they're sitting there in the chains, but they don't do anything. They don't make proteins, okay? DNA manufactures proteins and the chemicals that begin the process of the building blocks of life to build up the organic tissue. So there's all of these sequences, huge sequences of intron DNA that is not doing anything. So they call it junk because it seems to be junk because it seems to not do anything. They're all the spaces where the other stuff that if our templates were turned on would manifest other chemical combinations. So as we begin to work with healing the DNA, there's going to be changes, but slowly but progressively, when they hit critical mass, will happen in the template, and they'll build up critical mass and begin to be part of the hologram, where all of a sudden, it's going to be really funny because there's going to be a few waves where big changes come at once, where science gets to look under microscopes with some people's DNA and finds out that, what did it do? What are those things in there? Is that a chemical? It can't be a chemical. Well, only a base 4 gene code, so it can't be that. They're assuming it's only a base 4 gene code. There's going to be all sorts of things popping up and happening in DNA. One of the most amazing is those sad little lonesome hydrogen bonds that link together the DNA base pairs that hold the ladder chains together. They're going to come to life, and there's going to be new chemicals that form in them. They're called the turnstile DNA sequence, turnstile and spacer DNA sequences. Now, spacer DNA is another type of what they call junk DNA that they have identified, stuff that sits there between, I think that's between separate genes, and it doesn't do anything. The spacer DNA is going to come to life as the hydrogen bonds come to life, and new chemicals, one called celestylene, is going to be formed. And when that happens, all sorts of cool stuff starts to happen in the body. That's when the body has the potentiality to really shift its molecular base and the angular rotational particle spin, which will shift its completely the vibration and spin of its particles to the point where you can literally move through a time portal here and end up someplace else without losing your body doing it. So there's amazing things happening, and the problem is these things, our DNA is going to activate. It's already starting to activate at a higher level because the planet is going through a stellar activation cycle, which means even if the planetary grids are damaged, once the stellar activation cycle starts, the frequency is coming in, and it's going to come in, and if it hits a distorted template, it's going to throw all sorts of distortions all over the place, but it's still going to come in and push its way into the hologram. Same thing with your personal DNA template. When the planet starts to run these frequencies distorted, it's going to start running through you, and it's going to be distorted, and it's going to cause all sorts of crazy type of things. There are a lot of people that are going to end up sick if they don't do something, and if the indigos can't create a protection field enough for them. Indigos, as a collective, have the ability to directly interface with the mass reality field here. They can literally set a field that will assist in the clearing of the DNA templates of huge amounts of people here who couldn't be bothered with learning this stuff, but they can at least help them to clear the blockages. Because when you hit a blockage, what happens is the energy can't go anyplace, so it starts to refract. It's still pushing. It'll go and it'll start bouncing around and create chaotic patterns of all sorts. Now, these chaotic patterns in the template are going to come out in the hologram, and the first stop on the way through the hologram train is the body, the physical body, the emotional body, the feeling centers. So there's going to be emotional disruption, there's going to be mental disruption for some people, depending on where their blockages are. If they have a lot of blockages in the third DNA strand template that's connected to the part of ourselves that we call the mental body, that's the part that right now is choosing what thought forms it's going to use. You're going to have distortions in the chemicals, because chemicals are what, when we have myons and dions, and we start to create myon and dion fields, they take on chemical clothing. So the chemicals, carriers in the brain of the myons and dions, are going to start to do things and change, which is going to create imbalances in the way the brain chemicals work for some people. Not everybody, but for some. Now, if you can stabilize it there, if you don't clear it, it goes someplace. People that can manage to stabilize their thought patterns on the mental level, if they don't heal them and literally transmute the disharmonic patterns, they will start to drop in frequency, go down to strand 2, and they will start affecting the emotional body. So your mind may be just fine, and you're calm, cool, collected, and detached, but your emotional body is raging, right? Where it's like screaming because all these energies, you're stuffing them down in because you want to stay stable and focused and in control. So instead of letting the stuff come out saying, this is a disharmonic pattern, now I have to make some choices about how I will heal this and how I will remove it and transmute it to a higher level. If you just like, I'm not going to deal with that, nope, I'm not going to look at that part, you're stuffing it all down into your emotional body and into your physical body, which is causing more distortions in the second and first DNA strand template. Now, people that repress their emotions, that's the next step in the repression game, where you got your mind under control, or so you think, then your emotions start to drag you all over. This is where your mind is in perfect control. 99% of the time you're doing really, really well, and you're such a nice person. But every once in a while, you either have this absolute, like a week of just absolute depression. You start to go into like that manic depressive mode where sometimes I'm high and sometimes I just want to be dead because I can't stand it. And you kind of, and then the other part of yourself, your mental body goes, what is wrong with me? Oh, boy. And you say, all right, the emotions aren't good things. Emotions are like dragging me around, and I can't be as calm, cool, and collected as I want to be. So you get afraid of your own emotions, which makes you want to repress them more. Sometimes they won't come out in that passive stance of just, I feel bad, I feel good, I feel bad, I feel good. Sometimes you get so sick of that one that it just builds up, and then it just comes out and goes, wah, I'm angry, you know? And I'm angry can come out in many different ways. It can come out in, you just bite somebody's face off verbally, and you feel really bad afterwards. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't know, well, yeah, I felt that, but it wasn't really that intense. You know, it just had this fuel behind it, like rocket fuel that came out of somewhere, you know. You will find Another way anger comes out is because you have so much control in your mental body that you would never, ever, ever do that to somebody because you're much nicer than that, but you still have this rage wanting to go somewhere. So some people run to the refrigerator. I will eat it away. It comforts it. It brings more energy and it comforts it, so my brain can be distracted. My emotional body can get distracted with processing telluric elements that are in the food. So it comforts me, so I don't have to deal with the fact that I'm angry, right? Addictive behavior is coming, like all sorts of addictive behavior comes out of this repressed rage and anger from disharmonic patterns. They're being stuffed into the emotional body. And they create chemical realities in the body that actually make chemical addictions happen, where your chemicals all of a sudden crave chemicals from over here, be it carbohydrates if you went in that direction, nicotine if you went in that direction. I still function on nicotine because when I walked into this body, it was already running on that pattern. It'll take me 6 months to clear that pattern, and I haven't had the time to stop yet. You know? So when we start to understand that the parts of ourselves that are least understandable and that we don't like to deal with, the parts that do things that we wish we didn't, that part that just compels you to go to the fridge or compels you to pick up the cigarette or compels you to go drink 4 times as much as you know you can process, these kind of things are coming from the emotional body level in the second strand and the first strand, the physical chemical stuff of the D1 imprint that's going right down into your subatomic particles that are saying, feed me this, feed me this. So your mental body is trying to say, I have control. I will not do this today. You know, in 6 weeks' time, if I don't do this, I'll be at this level. But you never get to that point in time because the chemicals override you. Your mental body's trying to hold on, and trying to hold on is what is perpetuating the problem. You're trying to stay in control. You're trying to control these behaviors and repress them instead of understanding the lesson that's in them. There's a message in them. They're crying out. They're parts of yourself that are crying out and say, help, I need healing. There's a blockage in my template here. This is what these type of behaviors are about. Sometimes, now if you can take it back to its energy form, myons. You're made of myons. You just appear to be made of other stuff. That's the hologram. You're made of myons. So there are myons that are distorted in the frequency bands that are below the myons that this part of your consciousness is composed of. You have the power because you are here in a faster flash line. Your myons are faster here. So they have the ability to straighten out those other ones. But right now, this part of the mind has been slowed to an unnatural rate because of the Merkaba spins, and this one has been picked up. So actually your physical and your emotional bodies are running at more intensity than your mental body, which means your mental body is having a heck of a time trying to direct the flashline sequences and the myons below it. The first thing you can do is realize, if you're going to heal the hologram, take it back to its core. Energy. Okay? Myons, dyons, and their interactions. You can fight with yourself and go through psychoanalysis from now until eternity, but you're not going to fix 99% of what's creating the problem that got you there in the first place. Energy is the solution to it. And the way you can get to the point where you can clear these things, and clearing is not always fun. I mean, you start to work with the stuff that will clear it. Realize, you know how if a person drinks too much and they drink that last drink and they just know, uh-oh. Body tolerance has been exceeded. And the stomach just sends up a message that says, better find a bathroom. Because you know you're going to lose it, right? The body has hit its tolerance of what is toxic to it, and it will purge it. And the whole process of that purging is not fun, and it's not pretty, but after it's done, you feel a lot better. You're usually pretty tired, but you feel a lot better. I've watched people go through this a lot of times. You know, the drinking was easy. People that get addicted to drugs go through absolute hell with that purging because those chemicals really bond to the DNA template. So they're literally having to rip them back out of the template to get them out of the system. Now, when we go through milder versions where we're not horribly addicted to anything, so we have some control over our being, and we seem to anyway, you'll be surprised at what comes up out of your emotional body level. There'll be all sorts of yucky feelings sometimes that come up. You'll wake up and have a day, you just wake up and come into consciousness going, oh, yuck. It's a processing day. I can just feel it. Because you can feel the stuff hanging there, getting ready to birth itself out into your hologram. And where is it? It's right here right now. It's in your body. So it feels yucky. And as you proceed through your day, it goes out of your body. And usually it comes out in attitude. It comes out in the emotional signals you're sending to other people. And then they throw some back at you because they didn't like what you sent. And you walk through it. And eventually you'll notice, whatever that was, and sometimes it'll come out in like repeated fights with a certain person. You and them have an issue that matches, right? And you're each taking a different polarized stance. So you will have that interaction, that purging interaction happening. Sometimes anger is healing, where you'll start to get angry about something and you'll have a really heated dialogue with someone. And then you kind of look at each other. Do you ever have one of these arguments where you can get in a screaming fit with somebody, they're screaming at you and you're screaming at them, and then a part of it, each of you at the same time sometimes realizes, this is funny. Well, there's a part that becomes aware, because you're letting the energy out. You're letting the disharmonic energy come out, so at least you're not stuffing it down and repressing it. You're resolving an issue. There's two vibrational patterns that are all chaotic, and they're crashing into each other, and as they crash in, parts of them are starting to harmonize, but it looks like a big fight on the outside. There's a part of you that can recognize this, and as you get into higher strand activation, you'll start to get that little, part of you sitting on your shoulder going, saying to the other one that has to the person's shoulder, do you see it yet? This is funny. I don't figure it out yet, but it's funny. We're standing here screaming at each other. You might start to remember, oh my God, we had this fight 5,000 years ago. This isn't ours, this is theirs. You might start processing some of the issues that really aren't too much for you right now, but they started to come through your template because you activated strands that brought you into an open consciousness flow with a different time period with that person. I've had the funniest experiences with this. Oh my goodness. I remember one person who was associated with the Akhenaten Pharaoh period, and we had an incarnation there. And we had this one big fight, because he was getting really tied up with the Anunnaki, and he was really screwing up things that a lot of people depended on him to do. And he had blamed me for certain things, because I wouldn't cooperate. And he was like, over my dead body, I'll cooperate with those guys when they're trying to come in here and take over. You think it's the easier way? Well, in the long run, it won't be. We ended up calling each other spontaneously by the same names, and then looked at each other and, we're still doing it. We brought our incarnational memory right into focus here in the current time. It brought that time period right here where we saw the tension that we were experiencing was the tension we were experiencing back there. It made it a lot easier when we realized, we're in a different framework now. It doesn't really matter who's going to be on the throne of Egypt, because the throne of Egypt isn't in this hologram anymore. Can we call a truce? That kind of thing. So as we work with technologies that will bring us into more healing in our DNA, so our hologram starts to have a little more stability, and so our emotional bodies can get cleared out, we will have some interesting days and experiences. You have to be gentle with yourself and forgive yourself ahead of time. Don't allow yourself to get so angry at yourself that you start judging yourself. You need to stay in love with yourself, state of vibrational harmonization. And you need to stay in love with other people too, realizing if they're having a bad day, and someone might want to make it your fault. If there's a light, it's a pattern that's in there where we start to try to project it out into, okay, I feel this, it's because of that, and you throw it at people. It's actually an implant running through the grids that causes us to do that. It takes our thought field and teaches us to throw it at the object that we're seeing, thinking it's separate from ourselves, instead of saying, okay, that's coming from me. You need to start with forgiveness, which is a willingness to say, we're in a life process here, and it doesn't always look absolutely perfect, but it is perfect in the process that is going on. The perfection is given, but we need to expand what our perception of the word perfection means. Perfection is, you are perfectly yourself right now, and they are perfectly themselves right now. And as faces of God, you need to accept the fact that this is perfectly who we need to be right now. Sometimes being in your imperfection, or what appears to be imperfection, is your fastest way of healing or helping someone else to heal. There are reasons behind the illusion. So if we learn to be gentle with ourselves and get a little bit of mental body savvy, you say, aha, that's one of those emotions coming up. Oh, this is one of those conversations coming up, where you can not get sucked in to the energy of what the miasmic clearing is doing, what clearing those distorted patterns is doing. You can still clear them. You don't disengage. You have to engage them. Let them run. You have to let the yucky feelings come up and come out. It helps a lot if you can learn to direct them effectively, where they're coming up and out. It's kind of like when you have to go throw up. You don't want to throw up all over everybody around you, so you kind of try to go someplace where you're not going to damage anything and let it come up. There are times when you will do it with other people, but one of the most effective ways to do it is with sound. Before it gets to the point where you put words on the sound, go back to what are words? Words are sound. When we throw stuff at other people because we had a bad day and we just lost it, we got to the point where we're just so tired, you just can't be nice anymore because the emotional body comes up and runs over your mental body. Usually it comes out in words or actions. Usually with women, it comes out in words and tears. Now, women have anger too, and they can come out, and they can come out where it's physically directed, and they can hit and those kind of things. Where males, just because of the orientation of the percentage of myons and dions that the bodies and the consciousness are composed of, if you can understand male-female principle with it, you have the myon, which draws in, all right, and you have the dion, which projects out. So the female body is built on a percentage of having more myon to dion ratio, just a little bit. But that little bit creates the gender difference. That little bit also creates the consciousness as more likely to turn in on itself and to go this way when it's having disharmony, and to like have a nervous breakdown inside and go cry on your pillow and those kind of things. Where the first impulse, the fight or flight stuff will come out, women tend to fly. They'll fly into themselves and out and away and jump out of their bodies if they can. They'll go into the astral state. A lot of people would just literally walk around with their astral body here and their head here because they don't want to feel the emotional body here. That tends to be a female stance that's coming from drawing in. The urge to draw in comes from literally what your consciousness is composed of as more myons. Now, the male body has the more of a push. It's a transmitter. It has more of a transmitting charge. So the fight or flight instinct, it's translated more into the fight pattern where it throws energy out this way. Honestly, males and females, the female is in the male and the male is in the female. We're androgynous beings. We're just amplifying one polarity a little bit more. We can learn to balance those things. I mean, there are women right now, we're going into a cycle where the polarities are beginning to merge in the self. So you're finding lots more women who feel free to be violent when necessary, and you're finding a lot more men who are finding it's just fine to go cry. And that's good. That means your myons and dions inside of yourself and your consciousness are starting to balance each other. But when we get into clearing phases, sound is the most powerful healing modality there is. There are times when if you can just let sound, let those chaotic patterns sound themselves, but not attach them to a language pattern. Not the language pattern your mental body is used to using. Because then you're assigning value and meaning to it that implies something else. You're giving it an intention that way. When you're just trying to clear a bunch of chaos patterns that you don't even know what the intention is, you attach it to an intention that says, it's because of this, and this is what's making this happen, so that's where I'm going to direct this. You're creating an issue. You're creating a thought pattern, conflict drama. If you can go behind that and realize when an icky pattern comes up, it doesn't mean you're denying that you have to do something about something in your life that's making this happen. If a person said something to you and that offended me, well, I'm going to tell you about it. Before you tell them about it, go back to sound first and deal with yourself and what the feeling really is. Because we tend to, like attracts like with chaotic patterns. If we're having a conflict pattern, just conflicting feelings coming up, and they're looking for something to attach to so they can get bigger and they can go into the hologram, and you give them, it's like throwing them a little lifeline. Say, here you go. It might be this. It could be that this person said this to me. Try that. And the emotion goes, yep, that's what's making me feel bad. It's your fault. And then you get mad at the person or upset by the person, and you project it all into the relationship, and then you play ping pong for a while. There's a way to deal with it behind that. And meanwhile, every time you play ping pong, well, you say this, well, I say this, well, you say this, and I say this. What are you doing? You're building the energy, you're amplifying it, and it comes back on when times you disappear, it comes back as amplified energy, and it gets projected out as even more amplified issues the next time. Thought accretes, and what you put into it expands. So it's very wise to be careful how much energy you want to invest in a thought pattern. If you can realize that behind every thought pattern and the disharmonic stuff that'll come up for you, there is really just a sound tone problem. It's like you have a little choir of scalar waves in there, and there's a few of them singing out of tune, and it's messing up the whole sound of the choir. Now, you don't kick them out of the choir, because they're permanent residents. You can't kick them out of the choir. But you can gently work with them to let them say, okay, just try this. Give them tone that will first allow them to express, to diffuse some of the charge. Which means go out in a place where there's not too many people around so you don't have to worry about it and so they don't have to worry about it. And say, okay, I feel that feeling that I can't even define. I won't define it. Once you define it, you label it and you make it a thing. That's when you make it a thought. That's when you give it an identity that's going to go bouncing out into your hologram. Notice it as a feeling. This is energy. Don't assign a judgment to it. Now, this is yucky, icky energy. I don't like you, all right, I'll deal with you. You just assigned a meaning to it, and it's going to come back and say, that's not very nice, and it's going to throw energy back at you, so you're going to play ping pong with your own self. You identify it as energy. And we do this all the time. These are the patterns we're so used to dealing with ourselves on. We run our emotional bodies on a literally subconscious level, so we don't have to deal with the fact that it's really a mess when we start to try to communicate with each other. That part of ourself and this part of ourself never seem to agree with each other. If you just deal with it as sound, where you go into acknowledging a feeling, because your emotional body talks to you first as feeling. It'll either be a good feeling, and indigos are usually very sensitive to it because they have more aparti. Those little receivers for frequency, indigos have more because they have more than 12 strands. So they are more sensitive to all the subharmonics around them. Identify the feeling. If it's an icky feeling, it feels like an icky feeling, say, from this perspective, it could be perceived as an icky feeling. It's how you talk to yourself that starts to change how you can interact with it. And you say, that could be identified as icky, but really it's just energy. I'm not going to assign a value to it. It's just an energy pattern. First of all, when you assign a value to it, if you look at something and say, oh, isn't that beautiful? You get this, feeling that spreads through you. If you say, look at something, and it can be a nothing. It can be like a little pebble sitting on top of a leaf. And to some people, they go, oh, it's beautiful. And they would just open up and go right into full resonance with the beauty of this thing. Another person, depending on where their consciousness is, that they could come up and look and say, oh, that's horrible. Feel the difference between just using those word patterns. Say it to yourself in your mind. Even say it outside. Say this with me. Isn't that beautiful? Feel what it does around your arms and stuff. That's a cool feeling, isn't it? You just created an energy signature. How did you do it? You used tones in the form of what you call words. They have a living energy signature. Now say, oh, that's horrible. Try to feel what it does. It does something to you. The tones that you use in the words that you use to represent what you're doing create a total response in the emotional body, and they will bring up the chaotic energy patterns and organize them along the line of what you just said. There's a way to say, that's nice, or that is. Simply, that is, and let it be. Where, yes, it could be horrible, it could be beautiful. It's actually both in its own way. This is where you have engaged, because you're letting the feelings move through you, you're acknowledging them, you're not burying them. You're saying, yes, I will feel this, but you're going to choose a different way you're going to react to what you're feeling. You're going to choose to say, interesting energy pattern. You can say that with joy feelings or with icky feelings. The big challenge comes when the stuff gets down, when the distorted patterns get so distorted that they start to affect the first DNA strand, because that's going to directly change what your particle base is doing on the subatomic level, and it's going to start with the inside of your body. That's where you get physically sick. The big scary one is to hear the big C word. You go to a doctor, you haven't feel good, and the doctor says, you have cancer. There's just a signature. It's like somebody grabbed your breath from you. Because it's a kick, like really here, you can feel it. It's like all of a sudden, I am dying and there's nothing I can do about it. That's what the mind translates it into. Now, the big challenge is when you have things with the body that you really feel totally out of control with. You don't know what to do with the pattern at this time. It's still extremely important what words you choose to interpret the experience. This is where your free will, your freedom of choice, comes in. This is where you can use your freedom of choice to bind you into the hologram and let it run over you, or to begin your freedom process from the hologram so you can begin to master it. When we talk about assigning value judgment, making one thing bad and another thing good, now that doesn't mean everything is equal in itself as far as, well, you might as well go be a mass murderer because it doesn't matter. They're both just, that's as good as being a priest or, a God being. Not exactly. It means you can acknowledge a disharmonic pattern as a disharmonic pattern. You can acknowledge that it has a counterpart. Somewhere there is a harmonic pattern. Somewhere there is the divine right expression of what appears to be a divine wrong. But what you're not going to do is attach yourself to either of those manifestations. If you need it always to be the right one, you are literally locking yourself into polarity, which will continually draw to you the other one. What you need to do is realize and trust a process that's involved. You can identify, okay, this appears to be the way this thing is. Somewhere, if it's a problem, it implies that the solution exists. And the solution isn't someplace else because everything's happening now. It's all in your little holographic space inside your Merkaba vehicle that all this projection's taking place. If you see a problem, the only thing it's telling you that you're seeing the lower frequency bands of that energy pattern. The problem is simply an energy pattern that will come into a set of actions in your hologram. It's an energy pattern that if it seems like a problem, you're actually perceiving its lower disharmonic state, which implies it has its other already harmonized divine blueprint state. If you can react to trauma and joy in an equal way, engaging them, but in a detached way, where you're not too attached to what the outcome is going to be, because you know whatever outcome is will be the highest. You've just taught your mind to say, I am creating the highest pattern here. I will bring the divine blueprint in, but I will not assign value as to how I think from this level that's supposed to look. All right? That's the beginning, where you learn to surrender a little bit, not your power to anybody else, but you surrender your judgment to love. This is the big trick, surrendering judgment to love, because judgment is polarity and love is unity. Now, I'm not using love in a fluffy, lightheaded sort of way. I'm using love with its true definition, a state of vibrational harmonization. The Christos pattern is the absolute state of vibrational harmonization, the pre-matter template, where everything else comes through on. That's where polarity doesn't happen yet. If you trust in the pre-matter template, in its perfect pattern of being able to manifest the harmonic, or the nicely flowing where energy flows, which means it feels better, space, you trust the situation to love. There's a way of saying, you can notice, I feel about this. Okay, I'm going into negative judgment. I don't want to do that. Okay, I'll go over here. I'll look at it positive. You can get caught in this. You don't know what to do with your mental body because you're so used to just getting caught in the feeling. It's like the judgments come up from the subconscious. That's bad. I feel this. Oh, that's bad. Or you said that. That's terrible. How could you do that? That kind of thing. Right? You need to catch your reaction patterns and make a choice. Catch it before you get sucked into the hologram with it, because that's what happens. Our consciousness that's supposed to be choosing the hologram gets twisted in to the hologram, and literally the hologram drags you around. Where you can go and have a crying jag for 4 weeks because somebody told you something terrible, or because your spouse decided he was going to leave you for the neighbor next door. You have a choice of how you'll interpret this. I mean, it's kind of funny. If you look at it like the spouse leaving kind of thing, you can say, okay, I love this person. We've been together for 40 years. We have the most wonderful relationship. And all of a sudden, your whole world crashes because that person comes home and says, I'm leaving. I fell in love with my secretary. And just kind of, there's another one of those. That's like the big C word. All of a sudden, you feel like the whole rug was swept out from under your life. Now, if you want to see how any situation can be really perceived from either of its harmonics. One, you can say, oh my God, I'm going to die. I love you so much. How am I going to live without you? And you can go into that whole, oh my God, I'm going to die my whole life. Then you get angry. How could you do this to me? And you go into the negative. That's the lower frequency pattern. Then there's the other part. There's actually a part of you that somewhere will react the opposite, where it'll go, thank you. Have a nice life. I wish you really well. But the part of you that was in touch with all the things that you felt you needed to surrender in order to keep the harmony in the relationship, all of a sudden, we had a good relationship, and I really love you too. And it's unfortunate because I thought we could maybe do some things together and stay together for a long time. But I really love you, and if it's something you need, that's good. And I'll go explore what things I might need to do. And all of a sudden, the whole situation isn't a negative. Then it becomes a positive, which usually confuses the heck out of the person who just thinks they're going to drop a bomb on you. Because they come in like, ooh, I really don't want to tell the person. But I've got to get my freedom. So you tell them, and they react like, oh, okay. Yeah, can I help you pack? Half the time, they'll change their mind. Half the time, when you're like, well, and not meanly, not saying I don't love you, but saying, oh, I love you very much. And it's kind of sad because I really had some ideas that I thought we were going to do other things together, but obviously that's not working for you. And because the us takes both of us and you're not content in it, well, I'll let go. I love you, but I'm not going to strangle you. Usually, all of a sudden they calm down and they decide that, well, I'm not going to pack right now. And then you start to talk because you reacted in a way that was peaceful and harmonious. You just let it go. You let it be. You weren't attached to the outcome. Personally, if you were going to look at what you'd like to happen, you'd rather them stay, maybe. But if they need to go, you'll survive. So you don't make it their fault. So you don't throw a whole bunch of emotional stuff into the situation and charge it more than it is. That's when you're going into neutral space. These are the ways we've been trained for so long to use our minds in ways that perpetually amplify problems and keep solutions invisible. When you realize problem and solution are just the different polarities, the higher frequency and the lower frequency, you can look at the problem sometimes as the miasm, or the sound. Actually, it's more the other way around. It's usually the problem is the thing that's transmitting out. It's the dion that's transmitting out. And it has its counterpart, solution, turning it back to vibration where then it can be changed. It has a solution, which will be the myon. You have myons and dions, and they are in polarity. How you solve them, how you bring problem and solution together into the same space is turning them into a trion, where you bring the polarities together, allow them to be. That literally brings them into the next octave up, their next highest level of expression. It turns them into trions, and it releases them from your hologram. It takes them, the whole pattern, into a healed state, into another hologram. That's the inner earth timeline. So our mental bodies, what we choose to do with our mental bodies is extremely important. And there's not like a book on this yet, like, okay, instead of looking at this way, I should look at it this way, right? I hope they give one of those books sometime soon, because it would be really helpful. We're so ingrained with our reaction patterns. We have to learn, really, to act instead of react. Because usually what happens, something will come up in our life, either from inside of us or from what appears to be outside of us, and immediately we react to it. We react to it with thought, word, because our emotions are reacting to it. And we follow the emotion instead of stepping back and saying, what is that pattern? We go into fight or flight, which means either run away from it or try to attack it and flatten it. One or the other. Fight or flight is a polarity drama that's being created by implants that are in the DNA, that are manifesting through implants that are in the planetary grid. One of the real interesting things about what we've been asked to do for this particular workshop and the round tables that are involved. I'll explain round tables a little more in a minute. But the purpose, there's several purposes we've been asked to do round tables. There's temples that have to be cleared, crystal temples that are built on the things that, like on the cover of that Templar book, those big crystal things, these are underground structures of crystal that have been holding and running programs for a very long time. Each one of them, there's a whole bunch of them all over the planet, each one of them has a different type of program, and it's keyed to a different frequency, which means its program affects one of the DNA strands, or a couple of them. The fight or flight program is held in the control point of the planetary grids for strand 2, second dimension, which is Stargate 2. Its location is Sarasota, Florida. The temple that we're clearing here is the one that's holding the program that's locking fight or flight response into the body. This is part of the secret, okay? This just came through. They're going, you're kidding. Oh, yeah, okay. This is why. This explains something, guys. Thank you. This explains something to me. I noticed that when people come here and stay here for any period of time, when we moved here, it was like, this is the greatest place to clear, to purge, because it just stirs everything up. The vibration here and the flash lines are a bunch of them crossing over at very high frequency rate. So your hologram comes out faster, and it directly affects the gook in the emotional body, because its predominant vibration is dimension 2, which is strand 2, which is chakra 2, which is the emotional body level. Okay? Now, there are several programs in this particular crystal temple network that are distorting the natural way that this area would be sending its information through the planetary grids. This is a broadcasting station for fight or flight impulse. I didn't know that until they just let me know that. And it makes sense because it's the D2 frequency control temple here. This one controls the D1 aspect and the D3 aspect of the planetary shields. It's from here. You transmit through here, and it'll affect all the other ones. And so we're getting fight or flight response on the emotional level. On the physical level, in chemicals, we're getting polarity reversals in literally how the subatomic particles are interacting with each other. But we're getting it on the mental level too, which means we're having a real hard time seeing that place of union where the two polarities come together and you don't react to them as if they're polarized, where you just have a love space with them and you don't have problems in your life. You don't even have challenges in your life. You just have life as it is, and you move through manifestation, realizing you can fully experience things, and you're learning more about everything as you do, so you have detached involvement. You can't do that very easily when you have certain portions of your waveforms, your myons, turned into dions and twisted in on themselves. This, and I didn't know this, it was part of the secret, and there's going to be more, there's more coming on this evening, they're saying, that this particular program is one of the primary programs that have created several things. Division in the self by polarizing the three strands from each other. The physical, mental, and emotional bodies have been running at the wrong rotational speeds to each other, which means it's very difficult to get a clear line of communication between you, your body, and your emotions. Not to mention try to do it with your higher self as well. You can do it with your higher self because there's not a distortion to that degree in strand 4. So it can communicate down, and you can stabilize your mental body enough to get it where you can get it here. But try to anchor it in the body? I've had a heck of a time. You know, I'm a walk-in, and when I walked in, it's like, oh my God, I'm in prison. What is this thing? It doesn't respond to your thoughts. Well, yeah, what do you do with it? You know, I remember that the body, I felt like I was in a prison. There was something with the body where it's just not responsive, and it drags the emotions where it wants to, and this isn't the way it's supposed to work. What happened? I didn't realize the degree that this was being programmed in. It's being programmed into the DNA. It's making chemicals work differently. It's also responsible for the stuff that comes up between males and females, because it's affecting males and females in different ways, because male and female templates have the reflection of each other on strand 1, 2, and 3, and it's creating polarities where there's certain bondings and there's certain little repelling of information between each other. So it's very difficult in certain areas to create bonding, while in other areas we're both experiencing. It's both neutral. Let it be neutral. Go after it as energy and find the neutral point inside of you. You can diffuse conflicts with each other this way. We're going to help to do this on a big level, the people that participate in the Mondays Roundtable. There are certain frequencies that we're going to run that we're going to clear the program out of that temple, which means we're going to put back the natural state, the natural pattern in the planetary grids of how strand 1, strand 2, and strand 3 were supposed to communicate with each other. It'll take a little bit of time before it's not going to be bang zoom, we did it immediately and all of a sudden we're all fixed. It doesn't go that fast. It takes a while for the hologram to catch up with what the healing has been. But if we continue, and there's a process too, the hologram will only hold a new pattern if it maintains the critical mass. If the old pattern had a lot of critical mass to it, and you just put in a new pattern once, you might get it to come out once. But you're not going to get it to come out again if you just don't keep feeding the new pattern. This is where Merkaba mechanics comes in. The more you do salutations, they're the ones by yourself, to get your fields going the right way, the more it will hold in the healing that you put into yourself, and the more it will straighten out strands 1, 2, and 3. So we get to help make the fight or flight situation heal. So if you don't fight, and you don't fly, this will be my question, what do you do? Stand still and wave? No. I'm here.
Be vulnerable.
Yes, that is part of it.
How long does the process take to clear this?
Okay, to clear the temple itself, you mean? Or before it starts, like, clearing everybody? This whole pattern's been here since 25,500 BC. All right? It's been in the hologram, embedded very deeply for quite a while. It has a lot of critical mass. But it's been anchoring through a progressive in-the-moment point. There is a sonic beam that has been coming through these grids. It's attached to each of these temple sites, these crystal temple sites. So it's not just that they were programmed once in the past. They're being amplified every so often with bursts of energy that are literally coming through the solar spirals. So the pattern has been re-energized and re-energized. Now, we've disconnected the main source of the feeding station, which was at Stonehenge, where it was literally linked into the grids. But all those other smaller temple complexes still are holding their imprinting, and they're still receiving the information through the stellar spirals that's being beamed down from Nibiru. That's a planet that right now is in density 2. It's a sonic wave pattern, a standing sonic wave pattern that's been controlling the planetary Templar and causing these mutations. The mutation is called the checkerboard mutation because it's literally turned what should have been just a field of scalar waves, turned some off, some on, some off, some on, some off, where they don't communicate the right way anymore because there's all these blank spots, like a black and white checkerboard, where the black spots aren't supposed to be there. And if they were supposed to be black spots, they're in the wrong place. So they've created all sorts of electromagnetic interference zones and static zones here where the energy just doesn't flow right. Now, it will take, last month, it was the first time since 25,500 BC that the Nibiruan grid central anchoring station was actually shut down. Now, it was shut down by running roundtables because we were able to run the D12 frequency into the bodies. We were able to run then what's called the Kira-Shé and Kundera frequencies, open up the primal sound field currents in the bodies, where we become standing sound waves. And because we are standing sound waves that have D12 and higher frequency running through us, the Nibiruan grid is locked in at a reverse, where the flash sign sequences are in reverse, sending reversals into the grids, at D11. D12 and higher can override the code and set it back to what it is. That was done to the central linking station already. Now it needs to be done to each of the other sites. There are 24 sites that it's still being run through. They're not as powerful as the main linking station, but they're still pretty powerful. This is why we're going to talk about later, probably when we come back from break or dinner, one or the other. We'll talk about we call it the stewardship mission that run, the Templar Stewardship Initiative, or the Planetary Christos Realignment Mission. We're literally going to several locations that are the key sites that if you recode them, the other temples will recode to the D12 pattern. Now, this one we're doing, the one at Sarasota, Florida, the round table that we're going to do Monday is going to do this process. Roundtables. I want to talk to you about roundtables because especially the people who haven't, you just kind of walked into this and you did this really weird kind of interesting thing last night. I have no idea what I did. Why did I do that? If we can understand, first of all, the significance and the importance of Merkaba vehicles, our own Merkaba vehicle, it literally has the ability to control what polarity is doing in the body and whether or not myons and dions can come together to be trions, whether we can find that point of balance that allows us to move through our hologram in a peaceful, joyful state. Merkaba, on a large level, when you're dealing with not just your own, but everybody has Merkabas. If you can realize Merkaba, when it's spinning in the right direction, the speed ratios are the right way, have the ability to reset the organic imprint for each dimensional level that you're affecting of the Partakai phasing, which is how Partakai units break down, how much thrust each one has when they become Partakai and Partakam, which controls the distribution of electrical charge and force between myons and dions. If the myon and dion force is not, the interactions aren't the right way, they cannot come together. They'll repel each other, they'll fragment and create distortion patterns. So when we use Merkaba on a personal level, we have the ability to reset manually the natural divine blueprint of Partakai phasing rhythm. So we start to get our electromagnetic communication systems that our consciousness is composed of back into its natural order where energy flows the way it's supposed to. If you do that on a personal level, it will create progressively personal healing, which will progressively project outward a hologram that has less and less disharmonic patterns in it. The way to find peace is to be peace. The way to find love is to be love. This means that you must have the pattern of harmony inside of yourself first. Merkaba, and using it the right way, can progressively assist that and using DNA activation to clear and activate more quickly to get rid of distortions in there. You are progressively learning to be love, a state of vibrational harmonization. You're learning to be peace, the still point that allows itself to perceive and experience as the hologram runs through it. It is in the hologram, but not of it. You can experience reality from peace, which is different than detachment. Detachment is resistance. Detachment is going, don't like it, get away from me, don't touch me. You're in polarity when you do detachment. When you do peace, I am peace. Try that statement. You know how there's a mathematical program behind every word? Try this different. Say, I want peace. Say that. I want peace. Do you feel peaceful? Right. Say, I am peace. Can you feel the difference in what that does to your condition and your consciousness? If you want, implies you do not have. Implies you're in polarity. I am this. It's different than saying I'm going to get, I'm going to manifest, I want to have. I declare it so I have it now. No. You don't have it either. You have to be it. You are it. You can kind of go, I am new car. Yeah, I am trip to the Bahamas. There's a new way of relating to the things that you would like to see in your hologram. If you realize all that hologram is you, okay, I want love of my life to come and sweep me away and take me to a wonderful castle someplace. Okay, if you want it, you'll be wanting it for a long time. However, I am this. You become what it is you think you want. That's saying, I am this. I have the power. The more you say that, the more you energize that pattern, you will bring it to you. Now the thing that you are advised to decide to be first when you're dealing with learning to interact with your hologram is peace is the place to start from. I am peace, which is the state of balance between joy and sorrow, between fly away and fight. Peace. Start from peace. And love. I am love. I am a state of vibrational harmonization now. When you can get your mind to not argue with you, because you'll have all sorts of little thought patterns coming, I am not. You know, if I were peaceful, I wouldn't have to say this. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. At first, you need to objectify it to yourself, to hear yourself say it, to make the statement, let the sound run here, which is your past, and let it run here. So when you say something out loud, you're actually putting it in your past. Because this out here is the hologram that manifested from the units that you had activated in your DNA template right before you moved to the next one. And as this is out here, you've already moved your state of consciousness up to the next level that's getting ready to project out. So this is your past. So if you want to heal, you need to anchor it in your past as well as have it as your intention inside. The I am statements are very useful and very helpful. Start with I am peace and I am love. And love is a state of vibrational harmonization. I am this. I am. In fact, you know that I am that I am? Think about what that's saying. Think about it. Do you see the twist in that statement? I am that I am. It's not I am that I am. I am this I am puts it here. It puts it away from you when you say I am that I am. This is another part of the Anunnaki twist on truth. I am this I am means it is you, you are it. This, there's no separation. That is something out there. There's something away from you. I am that over there. You even say I am this over there. I am this here. This is a word that puts it here. That is a word that puts it elsewhere. Little twists in words. Play with these. Start to look at how language is used in daily life, and you'll start to catch things. And this is about embedding things in your DNA that will come out in your hologram. This is kind of funny that the Anunnaki programming people like to use 90%, sometimes, mostly it's about 80% true stuff, good stuff, with 20% twist. That little 20% twist changes the whole meaning and the whole effect of what it'll do to your hologram. I am this, I am. We are this, we are. Try to think about the meaning behind words and realize you are setting sound grids. And the whole key to manifestation is starting from the still point. I am peace. And starting from absolute engagement, not detachment, engagement, I am love. Love is a state of vibrational harmonization, which means I am everything, every vibrational field around me. I am this is me. I am in love. When you become in love with your world and your universe, everything changes in the hologram. You can walk it and be in it and not of it. And it can move through you, and people can be who they are and say what they want. But you can still, I am peace. You can respond with peace if you are peace. You cannot give peace to somebody or to a situation if you aren't it. You have to be what sets the hologram. I am peace. I am love. I am abundance. I am money. Right? For people who want money. Those kind of things. The want statements will get you a guarantee that you will keep wanting it in your hologram. The I am statements and this statements will bring it into your hologram because you are saying, I already have this. If you already have it, you don't need for it. And if you are God, you already have everything. So there's a sense to it. And this is the beginnings of understanding how to control all this stuff, how to get mastery over what your myons and dions are doing and what their angle of particle spin is when they collide with each other and all this kind of stuff. When you start to change your words and how you use your thoughts on the conscious level, you are learning to direct this back to its divine blueprint and the way it's supposed to operate. We're amazing beings. We're doing all this and we don't even know it. Right? We are constantly doing these things, but right now they have been working in ways because we're using language, because we've been taught to use language. If you look at the Bible stories, they say, yeah, the Tower of Babel thing happened, and God came down and wiped things out, and then scrambled the languages of the people. And then, of course, after that, you have another piece of Anunnaki history that comes through the channels that says, oh yes, and we came in when you were in a pathetic state and taught you languages. Uh-oh. They taught us languages after the Tower of Babel incident, which had to do with when they put in the final big sonic beam, took out the Babylon civilization, which is around Stargate 10, when they literally fragmented, they separated the languages because they wiped out the DNA templates where everybody was babbling and couldn't even think straight. Then they came in to teach the wandering tribes the languages so they could become civilized. These were majestic races before all of this. Our language patterns have tricked us, and it's in every language on the planet right now. Every language has its base in the original sacred languages, and then there were Nibirian twists, and then later draconian twists put into these to make them mean something different, so they manifest as certain conditions. Our whole political, social, economic mess that this planet is run on is being created by that. And everybody at this point is raised in the school system. You're a little kid, you go in the school system, oh yeah, this is what you have to do to survive here, and you have to, grow up to get a job, and this is what a nice person does, and you have to love your government. God, in America, we have to do pledge allegiance to the flag. Excuse me, I don't worship flags. I worship existence. I don't worship anything, in fact. I hold it in great reverence. I don't worship time. Okay, we're getting the there's another difference. You say, well, is it okay to pray? Be careful with the word pray. Intend, send love, be love. Pray the way it is used. There's a word that says, I'm in subservience to you. I'm going to ask you for permission because I don't have power. Don't pray. Intend divinely. Intend with love, with your Christos. Yes?
And I wanted to ask two things. I found that when you state gratitude for something that you have, that you're wanting to
Yes.
that opens the heart to the most. I wanted to ask about that. And the other thing I just want to tell the group that I've discovered that when you're really upset and your mind wants to attach it to a meaning, start barking and meowing.
Oh, I love it. Yes. I saw you get into that with the group in Kauai. You did something like that. That is brilliant. That is a great way to break the programming pattern. That was very much worth listening to. She said, at that point when you find yourself, you may want to go in the bathroom and do it, not just at the person because they'll think you have a disease. But in order to catch yourself, if you're starting to get, like, say you're in an argument with somebody, we're going to attach meaning to one of those things. You're not neutral anymore. You are not peace right now. That means you're getting dragged into one of the polarities. Instead of letting it come out with, well, you did this, assigning meaning to it, which means you're giving it definition and you're giving it permission to become a thought, just like you said. Don't do that. She said, meow or bark instead. Change the language pattern where you're letting it out. It does work. You can always howl. If you don't like meowing and barking, you can always howl. Now, what we're saying is, realize all these are sounds. All these things are sounds. We're used to training our sounds into words that create templates that come into manifestation. If you look at a thing and say, oh, this is bad, like somebody just got run over by a car and died in front of you. Oh, how terrible. Oh, this is just awful. And you feel, it'll take your feelings right down, and you're missing the point that if that happened in front of you, it's probably because you were being asked to serve as something to help their consciousness to get out of this system because it was their time to leave. If you can catch yourself before you get caught up in one of the polarities by assigning a value judgment to it, you should be able to say, well, if your perspective and my perspective are neutral. We both have our own, and you're not right and I'm not right, and you're not wrong and I'm not wrong. We just are. If you can get in that space, you're fine. You don't need to bark. But if you find yourself, you can feel it. The energy builds up from the emotional body. It starts to come up from here, and it wants expression. It wants words. It wants those words so it can identify the problem, and if it's somebody that's in your face doing something, you want to tell them that problem. You are going to make a really strong template. All right? If instead you want to diffuse that template to shift the whole pattern, if you did, like she said, use a different type of sound, you could sing instead. If you're going to... the person you're going to fight with thinks you're nuts, right? And the person says, excuse me, I love you, I need to sing right now because I am peace. They look at you like, how do you argue with that?
Part of your agreement. Like you say, when we get into this space, let's do this, and then it becomes a game, and you can shift.
Exactly.
But the voice has to let it go.
Yes, she's absolutely right. It needs to come up from the D2 level that's stuck in your chakras down here. It needs to move up through the D3 level and the mental body and up to the expression chakras. It's going to want to come out here. If it doesn't come up and come out here, it's going to go down and come out in the body, which will be some kind of, ouch, that hurts. That doesn't feel good, So there are ways. Okay, I was told I have to cut this because we have a schedule so we can get everybody with everything they need by the time we have to get out of the room tonight. Because tonight's the last night we're in this room, so we have to have it cleaned up and out by 10 o'clock. So we'll stop now. Not too bad. We're supposed to. I'm 15 minutes late on taking a break, so we'll take a break really fast now, and then we'll get back to why we do the round tables, what we're actually doing when we do the round tables, why they help us, why they help the planet. And tonight we're going to finish up with explaining what the Christos realignment mission is and about how we're clearing temples, and that's when they have a little bit more of the data that was on security release. They haven't even given it to me yet. So we'll have a quick break and then we'll come back. We have still a lot to cover. What's really interesting about this workshop is it's coming through live on the spot. Some of the information that how I get on a roll and I just keep talking? Well, it's just, I can feel it coming in up here, like they're giving me the understanding of the thought, and going, oh, okay, and it comes out, right? So there's a lot of things that I'm learning here with you, and it's really exciting because I'm watching this unfold here moment to moment, where, okay, there's some more things to learn, okay, there's some more things to learn. Now, with like, for instance, the I am that I am versus the I am this I am, I've used the I am that I am, meaning I am that. All that is, all that out there. All that out there. That separates me from it. I never even realized that. So even with the level of work that I've been doing with it, I didn't see the little subtle twists that are in there. It is, I am this. You're right there in it. You are engaged. You are not separated from it. So there's all sorts of subtleties. And it was really interesting. When we went on break, Michael and I were talking about something, and he said something in relation to something else, and all of a sudden, my brain just went right to that little bit of a statement. There was a lesson under there that has to do with another way of looking as something that we're so used to doing that we don't realize we're doing something that's the opposite of empowerment. The little sentence that was like in a different context that had nothing to do with this particular issue was said, what if somebody came up to you in a parking lot and for no reason at all just hauled off and smacked you in the face? What do you do with this? You have to learn to to handle your reactions to this person that did this action. My brain went, whoa, wait a minute. For no reason at all? Okay, that's a cue right there. There's always a reason. And then it went to, wait a minute. I don't see anything at all ever in my experience that is not in my template. I just smacked myself in the face. There's a big difference here, and this is the heart of the victim-victimizer pattern and how we stay in polarity, playing either one or the other. There is a huge lesson under it, and I will try to verbalize it because it's a lesson that's just coming down as I go along here. Where if you look at, somebody comes up and does something nasty to you, or says something nasty to you, the first thing you want to do is like, well, that wasn't nice.